I'm Martin Brunkalla, and I'm a luthier. I make stringed musical instruments. You're in my shop near Marengo, Illinois, in the basement of my house, and welcome. Well, I make primarily violins. Been my specialty, and in particular 5-string violins and violas. There's a few people in the world that specialize in that, and just a handful of people that do 5-string violas. I'm, I guess, lucky enough to be recognized as one of them. After that came mandolins, guitars, bouzouki, and more recently ukuleles. Well, my interest in working on stringed instruments started when I was in high school, about 15 years old. And I bought a guitar that was pretty much unplayable. It was the only one I could afford. And was lucky enough to find a book in the school library that was a stringed instrument repair book. And so rather than experiment, I read and learned the right way to do things. The guitars are primarily my own design. Mandolin based on 1922 Gibson F5 loosely. Designs are mine, but I want to say on the violin side of things, they're mostly like a 1716 Stradivari violin, or based on that, and a 1648 Niccolò Amati violin. They call that the model. They resemble every other violin, but there's some minor differences, and then some differences of my own tweaking. About 1996, I wanted to learn how to play the violin, play bluegrass. And I had not a clue what to do with the violin. I'd never touched one before. And so I bought a used violin from a music store for $250. It didn't take me too long to figure out that it was a pretty lousy violin. And so I went to another music shop and looked at violins, and all the ones that I really liked the way they sounded and played cost as much as a house. So the only way I'm going to get a violin that I like is if I can make it. And so I studied for a few years on my own. I read everything I could get my hands on about violin making, talked to other violin makers, made myself a nuisance to some other luthiers. After 3 years, I thought, well, I'm ready to try it. And so my first violin actually didn't turn out too bad. But I thought there were some things I could do that might make it better, so I made another one. And I had no intention of actually getting into the business at that time, but I was at a bluegrass jam, and a gal came and said, can I try your violin? I said, sure. And her eyes kind of lit up, and she said, can I try it in a quiet environment? And I'll be back in a few minutes. I said, I scanned the exits, see if I knew if there was any way out that I couldn't watch. And anyway, she came back and she said, how much do you want for it? And I said, well, I really hadn't planned on selling it. And she said, really, how much? What do you want? And so all I could think of was a ridiculous figure, you know. So I said it to her. I said, this would be this much. And she said, will you take a check? And I said, yeah, I will. And that was the beginning of my luthiery career.